If you're shopping for a truck in the next year, this is the kind of information automakers hope you never hear. These aren't refreshes, facelifts, or marketing-driven all-new models with the same old problems underneath. According to Consumer Reports insiders, these are 3 upcoming mid-size trucks engineered with one brutal goal in mind: disrupt pricing, embarrass reliability scores, and expose how fragile many modern trucks have quietly become. And the first one might be the most dangerous to the entire segment. The Atlas Forge M5 is being called the $28,000 truck built to kill the price war, and Consumer Reports sources say this thing wasn't designed to win drag races or internet bragging rights. It was designed to survive ownership. Starting around $27,900 and topping out near $33,500, the M5 goes straight after buyers who are tired of paying more for less durability. Under the hood is a naturally aspirated 2.5-liter inline-four, making about 210 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque, paired to an 8-speed automatic with rear-wheel drive standard and all-wheel drive optional. On paper, that sounds almost boring, and that's exactly the point. Consumer Reports flags the simplified drivetrain as the secret weapon here. Fewer forced induction parts, less heat stress, fewer long-term failures, and easier repairs once the warranty is gone. Insiders say this truck was literally engineered around Consumer Reports' reliability testing criteria, targeting owners who were burned by modern turbocharged midsize trucks that promised performance but delivered expensive breakdowns. If this truck hits the market at this price with strong durability scores, it could force every other brand to explain why their trucks cost more and last less. Then there's the Iron Peak T6 Hybrid, and this is where things start to get really uncomfortable for turbocharged trucks across the board. Consumer Reports is already calling this the first midsize truck engineered around long-term ownership instead of marketing hype. Priced between $34,000 and $41,000, the T6 pairs a 2.0-liter hybrid inline-four with an electric motor for a combined output of around 260 horsepower and a massive 330 pound-feet of torque. Power goes through an ECVT with a mechanical lock and standard all-wheel drive. And while that setup might raise eyebrows, Consumer Reports insiders say this hybrid system was tuned for durability, not speed. The real shock is efficiency, with early data pointing to 35 miles per gallon or more combined, something almost unheard of in the midsize truck category. Even more alarming for competitors, Consumer Reports predicts this truck could deliver the lowest 5-year ownership cost in its class, not because it's cheap up front, but because it avoids the long-term repair traps that plague high-strung turbo engines. If that prediction holds, the Iron Peak T6 doesn't just save fuel, it threatens the entire value proposition of traditional gas-powered midsize trucks. And then there's the Redwood Canyon X7, the truck Consumer Reports describes as overbuilt in a way automakers didn't want you to see coming. This is being labeled a throwback work truck with modern safety, built to survive abuse instead of chasing oversized touchscreens and software gimmicks. Pricing starts around $38,500 and stretches to about $45,000, and what you get for that money is a naturally aspirated 3.2-liter V6, making roughly 285 horsepower and 275 pound-feet of torque, paired with a 9-speed automatic and standard 4-wheel drive. No downsized turbos, no experimental powertrain tricks, just proven hardware. Consumer Reports highlights heavy-duty cooling, a reinforced frame, and mechanical systems designed to be serviced, not replaced. The X7 is reportedly engineered to outlast 200,000 miles with minimal repairs, a claim that feels almost rebellious in a market obsessed with short-term leases and flashy features. According to insiders, this truck exists for contractors, fleet buyers, and private owners who actually keep their trucks long enough to see where the weak points really are. And Consumer Reports believes that philosophy alone could reshape buyer expectations across the segment. What makes these 3 trucks so dangerous isn't just their specs, it's the philosophy behind them. Consumer Reports data increasingly shows that buyers are prioritizing reliability, ownership cost, and longevity over raw performance numbers, and these trucks appear to be a direct response to that shift. If the Atlas Forge M5 proves that simplicity can still win, if the Iron Peak T6 Hybrid delivers real-world efficiency without hybrid headaches, and if the Redwood Canyon X7 truly survives long-term abuse, then the midsize mid-sized truck market may be forced into a reckoning it's been avoiding for years, because once buyers see that durability and value can coexist without six-figure pricing, it becomes very hard to justify the fragile, overcomplicated trucks that dominate the market today. And this is exactly where things start to get even more interesting, because Consumer Reports insiders suggest these three trucks are only the beginning of a much larger shakeup that could redefine what buyers expect from a mid-sized truck going forward. And that larger shakeup is already sending quiet shockwaves through the industry. Consumer Reports insiders say several major automakers are privately scrambling, not because these trucks outperform them on paper, but because they expose a problem the industry has tried to bury for years. Modern mid-sized trucks have been engineered to impress during test drives and first-year ownership, not to survive 5, 7, or 10 years of real use. These upcoming models flip that logic completely, and Consumer Reports believes buyers are far more ready for that change than manufacturers expect. Take the Atlas Forge M5 again, because the real disruption isn't just the price. Consumer Reports data shows that long-term reliability scores are often destroyed by complexity, and the M5's naturally aspirated engine and conventional automatic transmission go directly against the turbo-heavy trend that dominates the segment. Insiders say early durability modeling suggests significantly fewer failure points past 60,000 miles, exactly where many mid-sized trucks begin to show their weaknesses. For buyers who plan to own their truck outright and keep it well beyond the warranty period, Consumer Reports frames the M5 as a financial reset, a truck that doesn't quietly punish you for holding onto it. The Iron Peak T6 hybrid creates a different kind of panic. Hybrids in trucks have often been marketed as performance enhancers or tech showcases, but Consumer Reports says this system was built with restraint. The electric motor handles low-speed torque and stop-and-go driving, reducing stress on the gas engine, while the mechanical lock in the transmission avoids the long-term wear issues that pure belt-driven systems can suffer from. Consumer Reports analysts point out that fuel savings alone could reach thousands of dollars over 5 years, and when combined with fewer drivetrain failures, the T6 could quietly become the smartest financial choice in the segment rather than the most exciting one. That kind of value is hard to counter with flashy commercials. Then there's the Redwood Canyon X7, which Consumer Reports describes as almost stubbornly old school in its priorities. While other trucks chase digital dashboards and over-the-air updates, the X7 doubles down on physical durability. Reinforced mounting points, oversized cooling components, and conservative engine tuning all point to one goal: survival under load. Consumer Reports insiders suggest this truck was benchmarked against real-world abuse scenarios: towing, idling, off-road work, and neglected maintenance. The exact conditions where many modern trucks quietly fail. For buyers who actually use their trucks as tools, not lifestyle accessories, this approach could feel like a long overdue correction. What ties all three of these trucks together is Consumer Reports' growing emphasis on total ownership reality rather than first impressions. Reliability scores, predicted repair frequency, and long-term cost projections are becoming more influential than horsepower figures alone, and these upcoming models appear designed to dominate exactly those categories. Consumer Reports analysts note that when buyers see lower monthly costs, not just at purchase, but over years of ownership, brand loyalty can collapse very quickly. And that's the part automakers fear most. Once a buyer experiences a truck that doesn't constantly demand repairs, software updates, or expensive maintenance, it becomes incredibly difficult to go back. Consumer Reports insiders say these trucks could reset expectations for what normal ownership looks like, especially for buyers who've been burned by turbo failures, transmission issues, or electronics problems in recent models. This isn't just about three trucks entering the market, it's about Consumer Reports shining a light on a design philosophy that many manufacturers quietly abandoned, and as more data emerges, the pressure on the rest of the midsize segment is only going to intensify, because once the conversation shifts from hype to durability, the entire market starts to look very different, and that's where the real disruption is just beginning, and that disruption doesn't stop at individual buyers, because Consumer Reports says fleet managers, contractors, and long-term commercial operators are paying very close attention to these three trucks. Historically, fleets move slowly, but once Consumer Reports data confirms lower downtime and repair frequency, purchasing decisions can swing fast and hard. Insiders suggest that if even one of these trucks proves its projected durability in early ownership data, it could trigger large volume orders that other automakers simply aren't prepared to defend against. The Atlas Forge M5 in particular is raising eyebrows among fleet analysts because of how aggressively it targets cost stability. Consumer Reports notes that the naturally aspirated engine avoids the heat cycling and oil contamination issues that plague many small turbo engines under constant use. Add in a conventional 8-speed automatic instead of experimental transmissions, and you get a truck that's cheaper to service and easier to keep on the road. For businesses that measure success in uptime rather than horsepower, Consumer Reports frames the M5 as a potential benchmark, the kind of truck that quietly replaces dozens of higher-priced competitors without making headlines, but permanently reshaping demand. The Iron Peak T6 Hybrid introduces a different long-term calculation. Consumer Reports highlights that in urban and mixed-use driving, where many midsize trucks actually spend most of their time, the hybrid system dramatically reduces engine wear. Fewer cold starts under load, less strain in traffic, and regenerative braking all contribute to extended component life. Insiders say this is why Consumer Reports predicts the lowest 5-year ownership cost in the segment, not just because of fuel savings, but because the engine simply isn't working as hard every single day. That kind of efficiency changes how buyers think about hybrids, from risky new tech to protective long-term investment. Meanwhile, the Redwood Canyon X7 is being quietly positioned as the antidote to overcomplication. Consumer Reports data shows that as trucks add more electronics and software layers, long-term reliability often drops, especially after warranties expire. The X7 counters that trend by prioritizing mechanical strength over digital features. Heavy-duty cooling systems, conservative power tuning, and reinforced frames aren't exciting in a showroom, but Consumer Reports analysts argue they're exactly what keeps repair bills low at $100,000, $150,000, and beyond. This truck isn't trying to win awards, it's trying to still be working when others aren't. What makes this moment especially significant is how Consumer Reports believes buyer psychology is changing. After years of inflated prices, rising repair costs, and highly publicized reliability issues, many consumers are no longer chasing the newest or fastest option. They want predictability. They want ownership that doesn't come with anxiety. Consumer Reports insiders say these trucks reflect a growing realization that durability itself has become a premium feature, one that buyers are increasingly willing to reward. And as more early data comes in, Consumer Reports expects the conversation to shift even further away from brand loyalty and toward cold, hard numbers. Reliability charts, long-term cost projections, and real-world owner feedback are beginning to matter more than legacy reputations. If these 3 trucks deliver anywhere close to what Consumer Reports predicts, they won't just compete in the midsize segment, they'll force every other manufacturer to justify why their trucks are more expensive, more complex, and less durable. And that pressure is only going to intensify as buyers start asking uncomfortable questions about what they're really paying for. And that's exactly where this story continues to unfold. And as this story continues to unfold, Consumer Reports insiders say the most revealing phase hasn't even started yet. The real test comes when these trucks leave controlled testing environments and enter everyday ownership, where neglected maintenance, harsh climates, heavy loads, and real-world driving habits expose design shortcuts almost immediately. And this is where Consumer Reports believes the gap between traditional mid-sized trucks and these upcoming models could become impossible to ignore. Early reliability modeling shared with Consumer Reports suggests that the Atlas Forge M5's conservative engineering could translate into fewer surprise failures during the critical 70 to 100,000 mile window, the period where many owners experience their first major repair bills. No turbochargers to overheat, no dual clutch or experimental gearboxes, and fewer electronic dependencies mean fewer expensive service visits. Consumer Reports analysts say that if early owner reports confirm this trend, the M5 could quickly earn a reputation as the safe bet truck, the one buyers choose not because it's flashy, but because it simply doesn't scare them financially. For the Iron Peak T6 Hybrid, Consumer Reports is watching how the hybrid system ages under real stress. Insiders point out that unlike performance-focused hybrids, this system prioritizes load sharing, allowing the electric motor to absorb the hardest work during low-speed operation. That design reduces internal engine wear over time, something Consumer Reports believes could dramatically extend service intervals. If early owners report stable battery performance and consistent efficiency, efficiency, the T6 could permanently alter the narrative around hybrids and trucks, shifting the conversation from uncertainty to long-term confidence. The Redwood Canyon X7, however, may deliver the most visible contrast. Consumer Reports expects this truck to stand out not in its first year, but in year 5, 6, and 7, when competing trucks begin showing cooling issues, suspension fatigue, and drivetrain wear. The X7's overbuilt components are designed to absorb abuse quietly, without dramatic failures. Consumer Reports insiders say this is the kind of durability that doesn't make headlines, but steadily wins loyalty as owners realize their truck just keeps working while others don't. What's especially telling is how Consumer Reports predicts used market behavior will respond. Historically, mid-size trucks with strong reliability reputations retain value exceptionally well, and if these models perform as expected, they could quickly become used market favorites. That puts additional pressure on competitors, because once resale values start diverging, buyers notice. Consumer Reports analysts believe that higher resale confidence could make these trucks even more attractive up front, reinforcing their market impact far beyond initial sales numbers. And beneath all of this is a larger question Consumer Reports keeps returning to: have buyers finally reached a breaking point with complexity for complexity's sake? With repair costs climbing and vehicle prices at record highs, ownership frustration is no longer a niche complaint. These trucks appear to be a direct response to that frustration, offering a return to engineering first priorities that many consumers didn't realize they were missing until now. As more details emerge and Consumer Reports continues tracking data, one thing is becoming increasingly clear: this isn't a temporary trend or a marketing experiment. It's a fundamental challenge to how mid-sized trucks have been built, sold, and justified for years. And as awareness spreads, the ripple effects across the industry could be far more disruptive than anyone initially expected, because once trust becomes the deciding factor in truck buying, everything else starts to matter a lot less. And that shift is still gaining momentum, and that momentum is exactly what has Consumer Reports analysts watching this segment more closely than almost any other category right now. Trucks have traditionally been protected by brand loyalty and emotional buying decisions, but Consumer Reports data suggests that shield is cracking. Buyers who once overlooked long-term problems in favor of image or performance are now openly questioning whether those trade-offs are worth it. And these three trucks arrive at a moment when skepticism is already high. One of the most revealing signals, according to Consumer Reports insiders, is how early interest is forming even before official launch events. Discussion forums, dealer inquiries, and fleet buyer briefings are already circling around durability projections rather than horsepower numbers. That shift alone is unusual, and it suggests that buyers are actively hunting for alternatives to the complexity-heavy trucks that dominate today's midsize market. Consumer Reports notes that this kind of pre-launch attention usually only happens when consumers feel burned by previous experiences. The Atlas Forge M5 continues to stand out as the psychological disruptor. Consumer Reports analysts explain that a sub $30,000 starting price combined with projected high reliability forces uncomfortable comparisons. When buyers realize they can spend less upfront and potentially avoid years of repair anxiety, the emotional appeal of higher priced competitors begins to erode. Insiders say this is especially dangerous for brands whose mid-sized trucks rely on expensive option packages to justify their pricing, because the M5 reframes value in a very blunt way. Fewer problems, fewer dollars. The Iron Peak T6 Hybrid adds another layer of pressure by challenging the idea that efficiency and durability can't coexist in a truck. Consumer Reports data shows that fuel costs are one of the most underestimated ownership expenses, and the T6's projected efficiency could quietly save owners thousands over time. But more importantly, the reduced mechanical strain changes how long the truck can realistically be kept. Consumer Reports believes this truck could appeal to buyers who want to keep a vehicle for 10 years or more, a group that's growing as prices climb and replacement cycles stretch out. Meanwhile, the Redwood Canyon X7 represents a different kind of rebellion. Consumer Reports insiders describe it as a truck built for people who are tired of feeling like beta testers. No experimental engines, no bleeding edge systems that may or may not age well, just robust hardware designed to take abuse. Consumer Reports points out that this approach may not dominate showroom buzz, but it resonates deeply once owners reach higher mileage. That's when trust is built, and trust is what creates long-term brand loyalty. As Consumer Reports continues analyzing projected data, they're also watching how competitors respond. Will other manufacturers simplify drivetrains? Will they walk back aggressive turbo strategies? Or will they double down on complexity and hope buyers don't notice? Consumer Reports insiders suggest that once even one of these these trucks earns top-tier reliability scores, the pressure to adapt will become impossible to ignore. What makes this moment so compelling is that it feels less like a product cycle and more like a course correction. Consumer Reports has documented years of rising repair costs, declining long-term satisfaction, and growing owner frustration. These trucks appear to be a direct answer to those trends, and if they succeed, they won't just shake the midsize market, they'll redefine what buyers expect from a truck entirely, because once consumers experience ownership without constant compromise, the old excuses stop working, and that realization is still spreading. And as that realization continues to spread, Consumer Reports insiders say the most uncomfortable conversations are happening behind closed doors at competing manufacturers. When durability and ownership costs become the headline, it forces an internal reckoning. Design teams that have spent years chasing efficiency targets, emissions workarounds, and feature checklists now have to answer a much harder question. Why do so many trucks struggle once the odometer starts climbing? Consumer Reports data shows a clear pattern emerging. Trucks built around conservative powertrains and mechanical redundancy tend to age more gracefully, while those packed with highly stressed components often show early warning signs long before major failures occur. The Atlas Forge M5, Iron Peak T6 Hybrid, and Redwood Canyon X7 each approach that problem differently, but they all share a refusal to sacrifice longevity for short-term gains. Consumer Reports analysts believe that shared philosophy is what gives these trucks such disruptive potential. In the case of the Atlas Forge M5, Consumer Reports emphasizes how predictability itself becomes a selling point. Owners don't have to worry about complex boost systems, exotic materials, or specialized service requirements. Routine maintenance stays routine, parts availability remains simple, and as mileage increases, the risk of a single catastrophic repair wiping out the truck's value drops significantly. Consumer Reports suggests this kind of peace of mind has been undervalued for years, and the M5 brings it back into focus in a very tangible way.